I recommend acquiring a small pattern collection of fail-safe, tried-and-true patterns that you can be sure will fit and work anytime you turn to them. Whether it's a rush job or an uncomplicated, relaxing sewing experience, to make it tonight and wear it in the morning. There are patterns that go together so effortlessly you can sew it faster than you can run out and buy it ready-made. My favorite fail-safe patterns are a pullover shell, an asymmetrical jacket that changes its silhouette by how it's worn, and a pair of quick pants. Earlier, I compared a 12-piece pant pattern to the one-seam pant pattern from Cutting Line Designs, which is a one-piece pattern. These are the fastest pants I've seen since diapers. When you sew a pattern for the first time, take the time to proofread it and its guide sheet. This particular pattern will fit anyone from a 35 to 50-inch hip circumference. Pattern guide sheets don't generally provide fitting directions, but this guide sheet is an exception. There are 2 pant styles and each one fits differently. Adding pockets to the pants also changes the fit. The directions are very clear on how to make these adjustments. Just follow the charts for your hip circumference and the style pants you want to wear. So it's time to take your measurements. This pattern doesn't ask for many measurements. Pull-on pants with an elastic waist don't use the waist measurement. You'll need the hip circumference taken at the widest place below your waist, the crotch length, which is taken from the center back waist between the legs to the center front waist, with the tape measure touching the body, and the length taken from the floor to the waist. To do this by yourself, wear the shoes you plan to wear with the pants for the correct height. Put the edge of the side of your foot on the tape 1-inch line and measure straight up to your waistline and subtract the inch. This measurement will help you get your pants the right length. Go back to the chart and compare your measurements. Based on your hip circumference and the pant style, the chart will tell you what size pant to cut and any other adjustments. Before you cut the fabric, check the crotch length. Measure the pattern in your size on the seam line with a tape measure on its side and compare it to your measurement. If you are longer, the crotch length needs to be lengthened. Shorter needs to be shortened. Divide the difference by 2 and fold or cut and spread that amount between the waist and the crotch along this line. I'm showing you on a half-scale pattern because it's easier to see. We divide the amount because the alteration subtracts from the crotch seam in 2 places. The casing pattern is separate, but is intended to be taped to the main pattern after any other pattern changes are made. Tape it to the top of the pant pattern, adjust the pant length to allow for a 2-inch hem allowance, and you're ready to cut your pants fabric. As with all fabrics and all patterns, it is very important to get your fabric straight on grain for the best result. We have talked about straightening fabric in previous seasons, and the guide sheet also tells how to get the fabric on the straight of grain. It helps if you start with either a torn edge or pull across thread to cut along and then use your cutting mat to square the selvage edge with a cut edge. From here, you can lay out your pattern and cut in a double layer. This is when you would make a test garment if you want to fine-tune the fit before cutting into your fashion fabric. As you know, this test garment is typically called a muslin because it's made of low-cost muslin fabric. An alternative for this is gingham in 1/4 or 1/2 inch checks. This is a great fabric for test garments because you can use the checks like a measuring tape and instantly know how much to shorten or lengthen or change your pattern. You can also make sure the garment is falling straight and the cross grain is parallel with the floor. Some people make their test garments in inexpensive novelty fabric and then use them for play clothes. The first thing you sew is the inseam. You can use almost any type of seam. If you have a serger, that's the quickest method. But if you don't have a serger, you can sew the seam with a straight stitch and pink the raw edges or zigzag over the edges. Then put one leg inside the other with the right sides together and sew around the crotch seam from the inside and finish the top edge. Finish the seam the same way you did the inseam. Now fold the casing 2 inches to the inside. Top stitch the width of a toe on your presser foot from the folded edge. Then top stitch again at least 1.5 inches away, as this is the width of the elastic you will use for the waistband. Insert the elastic through an opening you left in the casing and sew the ends together as described in Season 2. This elastic is especially good for waistbands like this because it has spaces for the stitching so it doesn't weaken the elastic. Top stitch 2 or 3 rows over the elastic to secure the waistband. All that's left to finish the pants is the hem. You can top stitch it, hand sew it with invisible stitches, or use a fusible web to hem it invisibly. There you have it, the fastest pants around. Make them in black silk for a dressy occasion, make them in bright floral print for a cruise to the tropics, make them in corduroy for an afternoon by the fire, and make them in less than 2 hours.